All right. Welcome to another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am stoked today to have two great fellows on the podcast, the co-founders of Rind Snacks, Matt Weiss and Ben Cohn. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
What's up, Shane? Great to be here.
Great to have you guys. I'm super excited about this one. If anyone's watching this on YouTube, we got Ryan in the background. If you guys haven't seen Rind or tried Rind, it's a brand that's about to blow up, and it's blowing up, I should say. But before I get too excited and jump in, Matt, you want to introduce yourself first, and then we have Ben on here too. So we'll kind of walk through introducing both of you guys, and we'll just jump into the brand.
You bet. Really privileged to be on your podcast and excited to share the Rind story with your listeners. So Rind is a brand focused on the power of the peel. We're shaking up the sleepy dried fruit space with a focus on functional nutrition in the skin of the fruit and sustainable snacking by using the whole fruit and increasingly rescued fruit. Like Shane said, my name is Matt Weiss. I founded the company in 2017 as a true side hustle. I spent a 2-decade career in finance in New York City. Loved what I was doing there, was in a very safe, setup, but felt like something was missing in my professional development and fulfillment. Always wanted to build something and love to snack. Who doesn't? Fell in love with this industry really over the last 10 years when my research coverage for the mutual fund I was working for took me to the Expo Wests of the world. And I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with those sort of Super Bowls of snacks and those shows. And it's just intoxicating. The innovation that's happening at the early stage and the ability to gain real market share quickly for emerging brands. The playing field is leveled, and it's never been a more exciting time to start a brand. It got real when I was living a double life and running Rind nights and weekends and trying to, concentrate at work when the business was picking up a head of steam. A really good situation where I sort of had a frank discussion with my boss, who'd been a mentor for me for 20 years, and said, this is my dream and this is what I love to do. And I didn't know if he was going to show me the door. Instead, he said, you got to do this. This is your shot.
Wow.
And so with that sort of support, it made the jump off relatively painless, although everything is a grind. But what made it even more exciting was to embark on this journey to run Rind full time with my brother-in-law, Ben, as my business partner. And with that preamble, I'll turn it over to Ben to give his version of events.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, and thanks, Shane. Great to be here and chat with you. So as Matt said, we are brothers-in-law, and Matt started dating my sister in college. So I've known Matt for close to 20 years, if not more than 20 years. And the two of us have batted around ideas for a very long time. We lived around the corner in Manhattan for about 15 years together. And as Rind became, more, real and less side hustle, Matt in the middle of 2019 kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I'm going to consider leaving my career in finance. Do you want to do the same thing? I also came from a similar background, whereas Matt was at a growth mutual fund and was kind of looking at, big picture, where is the world going? What is the TAM? What is kind of this business going to be like in 5 or 10 years? I came from a background in distressed credit. So we had very different finance backgrounds, which I think was great as we embarked on this journey together. We really have complementary skill sets. And as I considered, taking the leap and leaving finance to get into food, I really believed in the vision that Matt had for Rind. I believed in him as a leader, as an entrepreneur, and I also believed in what we could build together and said, you know what, like there's no better opportunity, let's do it. And, both of us left our jobs in January of 2020 and, then COVID hit.
Wow. Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know if I ever put that timeline together. I've known you guys for a little while now and didn't know, I don't think I knew that. That's interesting. So you guys, I would love to go back to the beginning. Like when you guys are having these conversations early on, like what was that like with your wives, for example, and like the family? Cause like, I'm thinking like, what am I, 7 years into my career? So fast forward 13 years from now, like, yeah, at that point, usually a lot of people kind of get into a routine and they're like in a great spot. And, maybe you're halfway through your career or whatever it may be. What were some of those early conversations like for people out there listening who maybe were in that, are in the same boat today and haven't made the jump yet?
I think Ben would probably have a lot of good perspective on that. For me, it was, you know, I was always throwing a lot at the wall as far as entrepreneurial pursuits, kind of a restless mind. And I'm sure at many family get-togethers, whatever idea that I was working on at the time would get a lot of like eye rolls and like, just keep your head down, work on your day job. But with Rind, it really did start to take on a life of its own. This, very elegant concept around edible peels being a nutritional powerhouse and yet such a source of unnecessary food waste that it was the most powerful of the ideas that I've been working on. And I think it became very exciting to get the updates and share them with family and friends and get advice and input, and very quickly realized I can't do this alone. I need to build this with people I trust. I love the idea of building a family business that has legacy for, my family, Ben's family, and just really building. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's like, this is the opportunity where Ben and I had been sitting across the desks of many founders, maybe at different life cycles of their businesses, and hearing their dreams and their journeys. And very easy for us to go back and model out how those dreams develop. Another thing entirely to check the ego, roll up the sleeves and get in the trenches and try to build something enduring. So that was like the most satisfying thing. And it required the support of family. My wife is a saint for letting me do this. And I think it was made easier knowing that her brother, who brings a lot of really important strategic skill sets to the table that I lack, that are strengths for him, for this to really be even more powerful together.
Love that. Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine it wasn't so. I mean, in your family, it wasn't just one of you guys. It was, oh no, we're both jumping in on this. It's a big pivot. It's a big pivot. It's exciting though. Was it like early on, like you guys were talking about, like it was a side hustle at first? What were some of those? I'm sure you can think back. It wasn't that long ago, but what was like some of that? Like you said, late nights, weekends, like the very beginning. What was a lot of that? Was it like getting the first couple rounds of production done? Like, how did you like even begin all that? Like, I think that's a lot of people listening ask that question. Like a product like Rind, for example, it's not necessarily like an RX bar where you can, Peter and Jared made that in their kitchen the first couple of batches. Were you able to do something like that with Rind early on?
A little bit. What it looked like was a total mess, where you'd have less than truckload pallet deliveries of dried fruit snacks show up and have your doorman cover for you and be like, yeah, this ain't gonna fly. Like, you can't run a small business from your storage locker.
Oh, because you were trying to do this in Manhattan.
Oh yeah. Well, I was self-distributing. I wasn't in UNFI yet. There was probably, Ben probably saw me when we overlapped our time in Manhattan with like 6 boxes in tow wherever I went and doing drops.
Wow.
And that was I think that's how any small business honestly should start, where you really do get a sense of the unglamorous side and make sure you want to do this, where you feel safe or comfortable jumping off into this, taking those big risks. But yeah, look, in the beginning, I love to snack. Again, I think everyone does. I think dried fruit is boring and was missing some excitement. And what I did when I had my first child in 2009, 2010, I bought a food dehydrator. It was like a very weird Amazon shopping cart, if you go back in time and look at that, because we had a newborn. So it was like baby clothes and like sharp blades for slicing, thin cuts of fruit and vegetables.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Anyways, was dehydrating in my apartment, like cantaloupe, watermelon, unique fruits that turned into.
So you were doing this for fun. You were doing this for like fun for early on.
It was a total hobby. I thought a fruit snack concept using cool fruits. It was before the idea of the rind kicked in, and it was just fun, but it was like blowing the power to the apartment was a bit of a hot mess. But the seed of the idea was always there. And then Ben and I would just ideate, late nights, probably a couple IPAs in, just talk about, what if it looked more like this? And what if the brand had more dimension? and it's not scalable in the current format. You can't self-distribute in concentric circles and have a big business. And I'll let him pick it up from there. But, you know, getting into the messy middle in the beginning, I think, is the only way to know what's working, what's not, and leaning into whatever demand you're starting to see.
Yeah, I'd say during those early days, again, Matt and I lived around the corner, so I would definitely see him, pushing a cart over to Chelsea Market. I feel like there was definitely also a lot of days in the park where, I'd be there with, my sister and Matt's kids, where Matt was, doing some demo, somewhere in New Jersey. I think, King's was one of our early accounts out there, and Balducci's, and, Matt would drive somewhere on a Saturday, and, I would not necessarily go with him, but I would be with his kids all day, trying to lend a hand to the family. But yeah, I'd say that was, the big transition was really, Matt did a phenomenal job as a side hustle of building the brand and getting, the product out there and really understanding like what consumers were gravitating towards. And, building a brand almost before business. And then as the two of us really linked up in late 2019, and, while we left our jobs Jan/Feb of 20, we were really, doing this close to full time, the last 3 months or so of 2020, as well as we got ready to raise our seed round. And it was really starting to think through, if we're going to do this, how do you scale it, right? This isn't just, we're not going to leave our careers, as you said, our 20-year careers, we're both doing very well, to do something that didn't have the ability to be a real business and be, as Matt said, enduring. I think that's something that both of us felt really passionate is, let's build something that matters, that means something that, consumers want to be a part of. And that truly is enduring and leaves a legacy. And you can't do that unless you can scale it. So we've really spent a lot of the last 18 months building on those plans that we had in late 2019, early 2020, of taking what's, I think, a really big idea and turning it into something that can be a really big business.
Wow. Yeah. No, I love that. I love the concept of going after brand first too. It's a really interesting way to think about it, right? I mean, lots of people can try to bring a product to market, but the brand and trying to scale, I mean, those are two concepts that maybe sometimes are early on widely overlooked. For you guys, even like, the first thing that I thought came to mind when you guys both came from longer careers in finance, and that's like what you guys knew really well, even with Matt getting into the consumer space from a finance lens early on, even simple things like, where do you source the fruit? Who designs the packaging? Like some of those, like very, like, I think a lot of times we overlook that stuff. Like, where did you guys even go for that type of work? And like, how did you guys get all of that rolling for Rind?
I love those little tiny minutia that are, some of the most important details. I think everyone just wants to be, how do I get to finished product, and not understand it's a lot of little steps that help build the business that are not, again, not glamorous, not sexy, but essential, like getting a tax ID number, incorporating as an LLC, trademarking your name, procuring, raw material, talking to co-packers. Each one of those is a very daunting task if not broken down into its component parts. And it stops most people from jumping in, right? It's so easy to just keep it as an idea in your mind and not take that next step. Don Shula from Miami. So yeah, he has a famous quote, which is, it's the start that stops most people. And the second you take a small step and you do something, you have a little skin in the game, and you're going to be invested to take that next step. And when it came to putting, all it is putting the pieces of a puzzle together. I mean, I'm not oversimplifying it, but few people go from idea to a concrete action step that makes it more real. And when they do that, it leads to the need to take another step and another step. And it's just so easy to give up anywhere along the chain. But if you're like 5 steps in, you're 99% ahead of anyone else who's just an idea person and not a doer.
Sure.
So dried fruit, it's not, we're sourcing product from these amazing family farms and suppliers in Central Valley, California, increasingly importers. We are having them manufactured to certain specifications. In our case, it's all about that peel and the rind and maximizing that. And then blending them uniquely into craveable, delicious bags of dried fruit that just haven't been made before in the same way. like watermelon and coconut, or persimmon and peach, or kiwi and orange. And so that the homework of just getting that piece of the puzzle together is going to the shows that no one likes to go to. Like Expo West is also fun and sexy, but if you really want to find partners to build a business, you go to the shows that are the supplier shows, not the brand shows. Little tip.
Yeah, I
And
love
when
that.
you do, then it's like, how well do you read people, and how well can you find instinctively who the good people are, and get to know them, and share with them your vision, and find out if there's a partnership opportunity, not a transactional opportunity. That was kind of how it began.
Got it. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I've found that to be such the truth. And like, even this podcast, I've talked about it here before. It was like, I'd always talked about doing one. And then it was like, oh, just like record one and just put it out there. No one's going to listen to it anyway. And I remember doing that. And then I was like, I'm going to do one, do one for 30 days in a row. And I remember I just did 30. So then I had 31 episodes. And so like, then like, I get it though. It's like, it can be applied to a lot of different things. And Ryan's a good example. I just love that hustle. I love that you guys both were like, it wasn't something you just like walked out of school and started doing. You guys had careers, you saw a gap, and you guys just started working and building towards it. So awesome on that front. That's really cool to hear. So once you guys had the product, you guys are, like you said, you're going door to door in New York and you're self-distributing. It sounds like then that was like some of your first distribution channels. When did you guys get into e-commerce? I know you have your own website. You guys are doing well on Amazon. Like how has distribution kind of changed over the last couple of years for you guys?
Ben, you want to take that one?
Sure. So, as we left, our careers in early 2020, we had some really exciting accounts lined up that, pre-COVID, when trade shows existed, Matt did a phenomenal job of locking in some really core anchor accounts. And we also had some pretty good geographic density. So, in the first half of 2020, we launched into Whole Foods Mid-Atlantic region, which is one of the larger regions, the Fresh Market, which has really good density as well in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic, and Wegmans. So that was three really great anchor accounts that gave us something to kind of focus around in terms of strategy to say, hey, let's really build out our presence, on the East Coast, in the Northeast, in the Mid-Atlantic. We also had some good accounts like Erewhon and Foxtrot, which aren't necessarily as many doors as some of those accounts, but really good for just getting the brand out there. And, I think that those are the kind of accounts that can like really just get the ball rolling in the right direction for you. So we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew in those early days in early 2020. It was really like, let's focus on performing really well in the accounts that we have and learning what is it that customers do and don't like. And before we start to go after another 1,000 doors, let's do a really good job with these first 300 or 400 doors that we have. So I'd say that was a key component of our strategy, was execution in the key partners that we had, and making sure that we, again, we're being great partners to them and not looking for the new partner on the other side. And beyond that, we've really tried to have a strong omni-channel approach where we kind of look at the world with a few different angles. One is traditional brick and mortar, whether it's natural or conventional club. We kind of view that as, again, the brick and mortar channel, which is really, really important. But again, we want to move at a steady and methodical pace there. The other two avenues would be, I think e-com, which we kind of classify as Amazon, and then our website, and focusing the right amount of resources and energy there, and finding strategies that work, and, products that resonate with consumers. And then the third channel would be alternative distribution. And I think of alternative distribution can be both sort of digital online subscription boxes. We've had great partnerships with companies like Hungry Root and Imperfect Foods, Hive Brands. We're going to be launching with Thrive very soon here. We think there's a lot of opportunity for a brand like Rind that really connects with consumers. I think the mission-based, part of our business really connects a lot with those same customers at a lot of those alternative distribution channels. And then we also think there's options in brick and mortar alternative distribution. Juice Press has been a great customer of ours. We have a lot of other customers that are very similar, where they have, like, whether it's a juice shop or sandwich shop, a salad shop. We just think we have a brand with a lot of diversity. And as a result, we can truly be an omni-channel brand that is succeeding, again, brick and mortar, alternative, and then traditional e-com.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that. It's interesting too, because you guys have a product, and you know this better than me, obviously, but it seems like there's not like a specific use occasion. Like, I think of Rind could be used, people could eat it in the morning, you could eat it at lunch, you could eat it as a nighttime snack. Is that pretty true? Like, I mean, do most of your consumers kind of eat it around the clock?
Yeah, Ben and I we talk a lot about this, that there are a few snacks that have true all day use cases. I mean, for breakfast, you're not going to have a bag of like Cheetos unless you want to
Hopefully not.
feel
Yeah.
terrible the whole day. Nothing against Cheetos, but whereas because our product is fruit based, right, and is 100% fruit today, a bag of like orange chips, which
So good.
are single ingredient, thin cut and crispy, instead of drinking a really sugary glass of OJ in the morning, where all the fiber has been kind of stripped away and the juice is from concentrate, you can have a high fiber, super high immunity boosting snack that fills you up. And versus having orange juice and a processed food that doesn't give you the same sort of long lasting energy. Then at night, you get home after a long day of work and you want to like elevate, a Monday or Tuesday night cocktail. You put a rind orange chip or
Oh
kiwi chip on the
yeah.
rim of your glass, and you've got, a nice time to relax with, a significant other, or, Zoom events. Or so there's really high versatility, and it's not just breakfast and drinks, it's all day snacking, cheese boards, graze boards. But you're right, it's got versatility as a snack, which I don't think you can say the same about popcorn, just as an example.
Definitely not. No, no, no. And it's interesting too, because your guys' product, in my mind, it's funny. It kind of bridges this gap. And one of the things we've talked about here a little bit, like something I've lived through, is when COVID hit, being at RX, for example, like the use case for like a protein bar kind of went away for a little bit. Like most people weren't really stocking up on protein bars when they were at home. But something like Rind is interesting because like I mean, to be honest, like we have a bunch in the pantry. I will grab it from time to time and snack on it at home. But it's also like the sizes make sense where like I'll take it with me when if I'm gonna be like running around running errands on an afternoon, like it's a great option to like take on the go. So it kind of can like bridge that gap too. You guys, I feel like you guys kind of check the boxes on a lot of these multiple case occasions, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, we were at Expo East a couple weeks ago, and it was that first day was pretty well attended. Basically we're on our feet from 10 to 5 without any breaks. And then, I kind of was like, wow, I'm really hungry. I've been standing up for 7 hours, and I need something to eat. And I was like, the coconut in the cocoa melon is the perfect thing for me. So I opened up a bag of that. I had a little bit, and it kind of refreshed me for that last hour.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing where over time, I've done that so many times where, if I'm driving around visiting stores and I'm hungry, I'll pick up a bag of strawberry, and, it'll give me a little boost of energy. So I absolutely think that depending on the mood you're in and what you're looking for, we have a product for you. And whether that's first thing in the morning, late afternoon, late morning, late night, there really is always a use occasion for Rind. And, Matt and I at this point have eaten enough of it that we could probably, write a book on it. But there really are just so many different things, whether it's a cocktail, the cheese board, or otherwise.
Yeah, no, I know. I love it. I love it. I love what you guys are building. I think it's really cool. I think it's interesting too, for you guys. So like kind of back up a little bit. You guys started this as a side hustle. And one of the things about going 0 to 1 that we talk about a lot on here is this concept of either bootstrapping or raising capital. And to give everyone a little sneak peek, you guys just finished raising a round of capital. So congratulations on that. It's obviously a huge accomplishment. But early on, would love to know what your guys' philosophy was around the topic. Obviously, if you're working and trying a side hustle, you can obviously put some funds towards that. But did you guys have any early thoughts when you started the brand, just like how you guys wanted to think about bootstrapping and then eventually fundraising, and just early thoughts that you guys had as you guys kind of went into this endeavor?
Yeah, I'll kick it off, and then Ben, please chime in. I would say this is one of those cool benefits, I think, of starting a company a little bit later. We're both in our 40s, early 40s, and you see amazing entrepreneurs that just like hit it with their first product or their first, go around, and they're fresh out of college, and, God bless, more power to them. I think it was more important to me to build up not just a little bit of a nest egg where I could bet on myself and our ideas, without raising outside funds. And then two, having a network of family and friends who believed in me and Ben, and therefore could be a friends and family round early of some of the most trusted people we could have. And that was, I think, the best advantage of starting this in my, when I was like 40, was a little bit wiser, had put some money away to bootstrap it, and then had a circle of friends between Ben and myself, a lot of finance folks, who were excited to start, not just take a flyer on us, but were like, frankly, this was the most interesting idea in their portfolio, because it was a breath of fresh air to be investing in a tangible brand and product instead of a small unknown stock where they might lose everything.
Sure. Yeah. So that's interesting. I mean, and for people listening who maybe would want to go down this route of whether they've started something or thinking about doing a friends and family round, was there anything, lessons learned? Or I would love to just understand, I'm sure it's a little nerve wracking taking money from friends and family on something that you hope is going to work out. But what was some of those conversations like, just for people listening who maybe have been worried about even going down that route to ask friends and family?
Yeah, look, more than half the round was like Ben's friends. So I'll let Ben kick it off. He was really instrumental in helping get the seed round together.
Yeah, I mean, once we knew we wanted to raise money, we did have an institutional investor that kind of had helped, lay out what a term sheet would look like. So it was also helpful that, there was a term sheet as we started to, seek out money from friends and family, because essentially they could say, hey, there's an institutional investor who has vetted this, and really it helped to, I think, give us some additional credibility. And then, really a lot of it was reaching out to people we thought would be interested, but putting no pressure on them. I mean, the first thing I said in every single email or phone call I had was zero pressure. We're going to be able to raise this capital with or without your participation. I only want you to do this if it's something that you believe in and it's something you're going to be passionate about. Because what we don't need is people coming into our book who are going to write a check and never think about Rind again until the next one. I think it was really important to us to build it with people who really, while they're friends, they also believe in the mission and what we're trying to accomplish. And I think sort of phrasing it that way, portraying it that way, allowed people to feel really good about investing in not just Matt and I, but really like what we're trying to build, and not have it have the pressure of you're writing a check to us. It was really they're writing a check to Rind. And that, again, was something that was really important for us to make sure that this was truly that sense of passion. And we're obviously very bullish on Rind, nobody's making a bigger bet than Matt and I are. But we didn't want that pressure, which is where I think you can run into trouble.
Definitely. Yeah. And would you guys suggest that starting with friends and family and kind of getting into the fundraising side of things through that route is better than going straight institutional and getting involved with maybe folks that, you don't have as close of a relationship with?
Yeah, I would say you want to be in a position where you have lots of different options. Really hard to do, but that's where you want to be. And I would just say, if you have something on your hands that's exciting and palpable, the interest will follow. And if people are doing their job and paying attention, I think you got to get yourself into the path of discovery through trade shows. So, I can imagine it's been really hard for new entrepreneurs for the last 2 years prior to Expo East finally opening up to really get their brand story out there in front of buyers, in front of investors who walk those shows. That was very important for us. So were it not for that, where our seed investor first discovered us and then would just see us show to show and say, when you're ready to leave your job, we'll be one of the first checks in. And cultivating those relationships and getting to know the people and the players you want to be partnered up with for the long term is really important. But I also say it's really important to do it with like the way Ben put it, with sort of trusted family and friends for whom they're doing this not because they need to, but because they want to, and they're evangelizing alongside you as founders the story. They get so excited to share with their networks about Rind, and I can't tell you how many interesting coincidences or even business opportunities that have arisen from having an amazing group of investors and friends in our book.
Definitely. Yeah, I bet. And I feel like it was probably wild for you guys too going through that process. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would assume like the careers you guys were both on, that probably was a very uncommon thing to, leave those jobs and start a food brand, right? So I'm sure a lot of your colleagues, friends, family were it was an exciting thing to get behind and to do. No, that's really cool. So and then you did the seed round and then you guys actually just you finished an additional round, right? You've now done two.
Yeah. Yeah. Really big Series A round. Ben, why don't you give the background on that?
Yeah, so we raised the seed round that closed in January of 2020. And then as we were heading into the first part of 2021, we started to contemplate a new round of financing. And largely, Matt and I had been running, the business, basically just the two of us as full-time employees since from basically February 2020 until March of 2021, when we hired our first full-time employee, a director of sales. And we said, to build the business, we really need to, raise a little bit more capital and start to think about team and also new distribution opportunities. So the timing was right to start looking for more capital. And, again, I feel like we were in a fortunate position of having a great lead investor from the prior round and some really supportive friends and family who were kind of like, hey, if you guys are raising capital again, let us know we're in. So we were coming at it from a position of, we felt good about where we are. And also Matt and I think just coming from finance are a little bit more fluent in some of this. And, we're always fundraising. Everybody's always fundraising. We really enjoy honestly conversations with investors because it's kind of, it puts on that investing hat that both of us have worn for a very long time. And then in the spring, we kind of met up with VSV, Valor Cyber Ventures, which is based out of Chicago. And it was just, it happened fairly quickly, but there's also some really good alignment where they're very focused on this omni-channel strategy and alternative distribution, which, is really one of the core tenets of our strategy. And we linked up with them, had some really good meetings. And, I think we were both really aligned with them and said, let's do it. And, let's do it where you have enough capital to build the team and really go after it and not kind of do it piecemeal where you raise a little bit now and then you've got to raise a little bit more. Like by raised over $6 million, it's really allowed us to start building up the team. And it's, as we've grown, our run rate is up 3x from where it was last year. And as we exit the year, it's probably closer to 4 to 5 times, what our revenue would be in Q4 versus Q4 last year. We need that team.
Wow.
If we hadn't raised the capital and had the team, Matt and I, our families would start losing patience, to be quite honest. So, linking up, it's the idea of find the right partners. I think when you raise capital, it's really important, whether it's friends and family, whether it's institutional, to make sure there's alignment, that they're good people and they're people that you want to build a business with and that believe in what you're doing, right? So I think that is something that as we raise institutional money, it was the same conversation we had with our friends and family. If you believe in what we're doing and you want to be a part of it, we want to partner with you. Let's do it.
Love that. Yeah. That's awesome. That's really fun. I mean, that's just, I can imagine, I can see you guys in these conversations. I'm sure that's fun to talk about. You guys both obviously are very passionate about Rind, so I'm sure that comes through. So, I mean, getting that level of funding, obviously that's got to be like a true flame on the fire, right? What has it been like then pivoting from just the two of you trying to scale this business on your own to now trying to build a team? I'm sure, I mean, you hit on it, but like that's got to be a big pivot in the day-to-day of what you guys are used to.
I'll let Ben, chime in, but that's been one of the most rewarding aspects of running Rind is growing from just Ben and myself day to day to a team of amazing, talented, people that believe in Rind's mission and are all in on our brand and its potential, and spending what we call like perma Zooms with these people all day, even though we've met in person once or twice. We feel like we know them intimately, and building that kind of family almost, that culture is what makes this is that intangible of the business that's value creating. It's so special. It's that secret sauce. It's still very early days, but we've been very selective with each hire and feel like we've knocked it out of the park with each hire. So we have a director of sales based out of San Diego. We have a marketing associate that sits here in New York, and we have a supply chain director that's out of Chicago. And it's still, early days, we get amazing looks at people who are looking to hop on this rocket ship with us, and it's humbling. And you kind of pinch yourself that you have an opportunity to work with these amazing people and set the tone, if you will, for sort of how we want to run Rind and do it the right way, and how we partner with suppliers in the whole ecosystem. Philosophy of kill them with Rindness, basically,
Oh, I like
where
that.
everything you do is tactical and has purpose behind it. That's the kill part, but the Rindness is everything is done from a place of empathy and real thoughtfulness, and making sure it's not a transaction, but that you're growing something together. So again, unbelievably fulfilling. We're both people, whatever. And
Yeah.
getting to know the people in the organization and having an opportunity to see a future where we have all these Rind rock stars and we're all, building something special. It's a dream.
Yeah. No, I bet it's got to be really, really cool to see other people like get behind what you guys believe in, right? Like it's one thing to invest, another thing to like be an employee and start to build that dream. Has it been tough to build, like we've been talking about this a lot recently on the podcast, it's just like, how do you build culture in this remote environment? Has that been quite not necessarily a struggle, but a challenge, I guess?
Yeah, I would say there's no playbook for building a company, in a COVID world. It's definitely, we're all kind of learning on the fly. Culture is incredibly important to Matt and I. I'd say, the advantage is when we look to hire people, we've definitely got a policy of they can be remote, which allows us to have a really wide pool of talent. And I think we've got a phenomenal team, and not to say we wouldn't if we were looking to hire only locally in New York, but the ability to hire the best people wherever they may live domestically has allowed us to build a really great team. But it is important to make sure that, we bring people together. So while we have a lot of weekly Zooms, and, I probably spend 5 hours, a day on Zooms, whether it's with Ryan or Taylor in sales or, operations. We are doing, an in-person planning session next week in New York. We all got together in New York over the summer. And I think, it's something that we're going to, as the world opens up, make it a priority to make sure that at least once a quarter, if not, more frequently than that, the whole team is getting together. Because while Zooms are great, I think that face-to-face time as a whole team is really important in terms of culture building, but also in terms of idea generation. I think it's, some of the best ideas come when like the team's out at happy hour on a Thursday night. And it's really important to make sure that we still cultivate those kind of conversations and allow the team to brainstorm together in the same room.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's been interesting to hear people's perspectives on that, because I've been surprised to see. That's great to hear you guys are open to like the remote idea. I've been surprised to see how many brands, not necessarily brands like smaller brands, but a lot of bigger companies. I felt like COVID was an opportunity for them to kind of allow more of that, to maybe like get a wider net. So that's great. You guys are capitalizing on that, because I think to your point, it just opens the net to be, the best talent comes to you guys instead of just worrying about where they're necessarily sitting day to day, which is exciting.
I'd also just add to Ben said, I love the fact that because CPG, we're both kind of new to CPG. We didn't bring legacy expertise, and a lot of the hiring we're doing are individuals and talented folks who have more CPG experience than we do, even though we've built the brand to where it is today. And what I like is that when you're just in one field for a long time, and you can build a wonderful career there, but for me, what I was finding was I was kind of in an echo chamber where you were reading the same things as everyone else. You were, you weren't learning in a major step function way, an entirely new set of challenges and problems, which I actually think unlocks tremendous creativity and problem solving when you have to dive into something new, take everything you've learned from, say, finance, which is amazing framework for understanding lots of different industries, and then really figuring out how to build a business in a new space. Super hard. And but by doing so, I think you expand so much of your horizon, your ability to learn from other people in other arenas that are building their careers, and I think just be better off for it. So I love that we're building this with outsider experience, with more financial lens, and then we're layering in people that have marketing chops and operations, deep operations and sales experience. It really works well.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it does. I mean, it's cool too to think you guys, what you just laid out, everyone on your team for the most part is spread out around the country. So you guys are probably also getting just perspectives and trends, and you're getting people from all different walks of life, which is really cool.
Definitely.
Um, so you guys, the one other thing I want to hit on is you guys have obviously the dried fruit, which we've talked about, and you guys, I have one over here if you guys are watching on YouTube, but you guys recently launched apple crisps, orange crisps, and is it kiwi? What was the third one? Kiwi?
Yeah, kiwi chips.
Yeah. So, which by the way, these are phenomenal. They're delicious. I when I first got these, I couldn't believe. I was like, I cannot believe that this has not been a thing. Like they're so good. But would love for you guys to just give everyone a little bit of a background on the two different products and then like what they can expect in the near future and maybe even distant future from Rind.
Cool. Yeah, I'll give a little of the rationale behind the two product lines, and then I'll let Ben give a sneak peek at the pipeline of what's to come. We started with dried fruit. Category is sleepy, to say the least. A lot of usual suspects: raisins, prunes, mango. A lot of the category had added sugar or sulfur dioxide. Very off trend from where the puck was going. So our first, mark on the dried fruit category was more innovative fruits that offer more functional benefits, particularly fiber and vitamins because of the rind, and have a sustainable mission-driven purpose to them. They eliminate edible peels from going to landfill and use rescued fruit that would otherwise go to waste. So made a big improvement in an existing category of dried fruit and really brought some sex appeal by our packaging, our combination of fruits in the stand-up pouch behind you, which is cocoa melon. At the same time, we recognized that consumers that want a classical chewy dried fruit experience, that we were offering something for them, but that the chips market, the crispy market, is 10 times the size of the dried fruit market. That's when you factor in tortilla chips, puffs, vegetable chips, et cetera. So it's very big, and the velocities and the turns, everything is bigger. And yet there hasn't been anything that has been a crossover that uses fruit beyond apple chips. Apple chips is trodden ground. We think we make the best apple chip on the market, but we want to be this crossover snack that can blur the lines between sad and sleepy fruit snacks, which we have made cool, and unhealthy but delicious tasting salty snacks that no one really feels good about finishing a whole bag. Yes. Whereas if you're eating a whole bag of orange chips, you're getting 300% DV of vitamin C, you're getting 16 grams of fiber. It's an enjoyable experience. You're dipping it in guacamole. Like that is infinitely healthier for you than a bag of fried potatoes. And you really haven't sacrificed on that classic crunch. That's where we deliver on, but you're doing it with fruit as the base. And that's the segue, I would say, for Ben to give you a window into how we're looking to innovate off of a chips line, crispy line that we think is very complementary to our chewy line.
Yeah, so I think we have a lot of white space in front of us still. Again, we have seen some really strong distribution growth this year in the chewy line. The chips line just launched over the summer, and we've seen some really nice wins early on. So there's a lot of room for us to run in both of those categories. But when we think longer term, we really think of ourselves as being a skin-on snacking platform, at least the potential to be that. And, it starts with fruit. We think fruit is sort of the most obvious place to start with that. There's, again, 15% of all, food waste is fruit peels. And, there's so much to do there to educate consumers that, hey, you can eat the peel, stuffing away your orange rinds and your grapefruit and your kiwi and everything else. But beyond that, we think there's a real opportunity to get into the vegetable space, the nut space. I mean, anything that's really got a nutrient-dense outer layer is something that we will eventually, as we build that connection with the consumer and earn the right to do it, go after. So we think we have a long runway of product innovation. It's just important to make sure that we focus on execution with what we think is already a strong lineup of exciting products.
Love it. Yeah, I'm excited. You guys have crushed it on the two already. Big fan. And to hit on Matt's point, it was funny. Saturday, I got back from a round of golf. I was like, I'm not hungry enough to like eat a huge meal right now, but I'd love a snack. and I ripped open the bag of apple chips. I started watching the Purdue football game, and by the time I looked down, I'd eaten the whole bag. And I'm like, well, there we go. I don't feel as bad as I would have if I ate a whole bag of potato chips, but I just ate a whole bag of Rind. So there you go. It works. It does happen.
One ingredient. So yeah, you can't feel too bad.
Exactly. Exactly. Love that. So one of the last couple of questions I love to ask founders that come on here. Obviously, you guys are crazy busy. You're running a business. You both have families. What do you guys use to, plan your whatever if it's business goals, personal goals, and then like what do you use to just get shit done on a daily basis? Whether that's an app, whether that's pen and paper, like what is it that both you two, Ben and Matt, use to be productive?
Ben is very type A and super organized, and thank God for that. I'm very right-brained. I think it's right-brained, where it's like the ridiculous ADHD creative thing going on. So I'm old school. I have this like giant calendar, pen and paper with a highlighter method where any meetings I deem super important or events, I highlight it and the whole page ends up being highlighted. So, between calendar invites and old school like day runner giant calendars, that's my methodology. I will put a plug in there that I probably wouldn't have been on Slack if I was still in my old, finance career, but I do find the collaborative real-time workflow of Slack in the beginning was probably annoying, but is now just so essential to getting stuff done. So those are my hacks.
Love it. Yes.
I don't have a printed out calendar. I generally try not to use paper unless I need like a wet signature for something. But I'd say, for the most part, I use my inbox and my email as my to-do list. And if I need to do something, I email it to myself. And until I deal with something, it's in my inbox, and I generally try to keep it pretty neat and tidy. So if something is still in my inbox, even if it's from 3 months ago, like until I deal with it, it sits in there. And again, I send around to-do lists every weekend to Matt and myself with what's on the agenda, and hopefully at least every week we're cutting some of that down and adding new things. But I do think it's important with a small business with a lot of different directions that we can go in to stay really organized. And again, using email and to-do lists I think has gotten us pretty far so far. We'll see how it goes as the team grows, but it's working so far.
Love it. Yeah, no, it is interesting that with two people versus what I'm sure it'll look like when you have a whole huge team, right? That's Slack though. I agree. I've been a big fan of Slack ever since I worked at Walmart.com. They were one of the first enterprise accounts that I think signed on, and I felt things move faster. Like you don't have to wait for an email or a call or a meeting. Like things just happen, I feel like, on Slack.
Totally. And it's not like it's earth-shattering tech, right? It's AOL, it's instant messenger for like business function and enterprise, but such a simple concept of setting up channels and teams. And it was, it makes work in the environment we're in today, especially, helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Last two real quick questions. I know we're running out of time. The one, just source of knowledge. So I love to always ask founders on here, whether it's a book, a podcast, what do you two both suggest to the audience listening today as a source of knowledge to just learn something new?
Yeah, Ben knows what I'm going to say. I'm super bullish on podcasts. I should do more traditional reading. When I get a book, I often do the Audible download and listen to it over the course of too many runs. But podcasting is just like, I used to only be able to run to music, and now I find myself running to long form audio and just being engrossed in whether it's a fellow founder's story or it's like learning a new skill or the daily or whatever. And there's one in particular that a friend of mine turned me on to a long time ago, and the guy just puts out some amazing content after SimpliFinance, of course.
Oh, of course, yes.
And it's this guy, Patrick O'Shaughnessy, who runs a podcast called Invest Like the Best. And it's that intersection, I relate to it because it's a very much an investor and business builder intersection. And he just gets entrepreneurs and founders to open up and tell their story, their vision in such a non-cookie cutter way, where it's like a conversation like we've just had, that I always find unbelievable nuggets from it. And Ben and I are usually like on the weekends texting each other podcast episodes. We're like, dude, you got to listen to this. He's like, oh,
Love
I listened to
that.
that one. That one was incredible. So that's one I share. And I would share with your team that if they're listening to your podcast, they'd probably also like Invest Like the Best.
Love that. I have not heard that yet, so I definitely will check that out. Now you're going to get me involved.
Now I want to hear what Ben is.
Yeah, no podcasts. I mean, I work out every morning listening to podcasts. It's sort of like my daily ritual to just have a little bit of time. Although the kids are coming in more recently, trying to get me to help them with sit-ups, so it's very distracting. I'm like, guys, I'm listening to my podcast. But yeah, Invest Like the Best. Could not recommend it more strongly. It is, I think, an unbelievable blend of, again, investors, entrepreneurs, business builders, and in the seat that I'm in now, it is just, I think, incredibly educational and thought-provoking. And there's just so many nuggets, whether it's somebody who's, from Andreessen Horowitz, or it's somebody who's building a gaming company in the metaverse. Like, there's always some nugget to be learned that, whether it can be applied to Rind or just thinking about building a business, it's really, really impactful. So that is something that I think, again, it's a daily ritual. During the football season, I probably spend a little too much time listening to like recaps on Monday of, what happened on Sunday. But otherwise, Invest Like the Best is my go-to listening on the regular.
Love it. I will definitely add a link to that on the show notes. That's really cool. Last and most important question is, how can people follow along with both of your journeys? And then, of course, how can they get involved in Try Rind?
Cool. Shameless plug. So Rind is available in more and more places. The easiest of which is to come into our brand through our own site, Rind Snacks, and or on Amazon. And we have a ton of information about the product, the story, and then an initiative we didn't talk about, but we're really proud of, which is sort of a pay it forward initiative around nutrition education for nutrition insecure youth. In markets we serve, we donate products weekly, bags of Rind, to local schools in underserved communities and help educate children about healthy snacking habits, eating habits early, so that they know what a real fruit snack should look like and not what some candied product is. And so that's one way to learn more about us, is find us on Rind Snacks and learn about the Love is Rind program. Ben, where else?
Yeah, I mean, you can find us, pretty much everywhere. We're going to be launching into about 2,000 CVS stores. So,
awesome.
That's
Congrats.
exciting. Yeah, it's our first kind of national brick and mortar account. So I actually went over and picked some up at the CVS around the corner from me in Westchester, New York, earlier this afternoon. Was really exciting to see it in there. But, if you live in the Northeast, again, Whole Foods, Wegmans, Fresh Market, we're just launched into Meyer, we're in Raley's and Fresh Time. So a lot of really exciting accounts. And, again, we're available on Hungry Root and Perfect. So if you go looking for Rind, you're sure to find it.
Definitely. No, I love that. Love it. I figured you guys were going to say TikTok, because you guys are a new up and coming TikTok brand. Forgot that one.
Yeah, I love that idea. We're definitely, we're definitely embracing the youth, where we're going after some ridiculous videos on TikTok. Everyone is a content company these days that also sells dried fruit like as the side.
Definitely.
And I am very impressed with what our team, both on the marketing side and some of the interns we've been fortunate to have been able to do as far as viral TikTok content and on our social, our social feeds. If you really want to get a great representation of the brand, check us out on Instagram. And LinkedIn is amazing as well. Like, it's not just about my own or Ben's professional networks, but it's about the Rind brand page, which has amassed several thousand followers, which is amazing. And we love to post frequent updates there. So I find LinkedIn to be an increasingly valuable, tool for us as we grow the business.
Yeah, no, I love that. Definitely check Rind out on all those. I'll add the links to the show notes. I know for LinkedIn, and to me, it's funny. I started going to LinkedIn over Instagram sometimes, and I'm like, wow, this is what's happening. My thumb's going into a different app.
Right? It's amazing.
No, LinkedIn's becoming really cool, especially for CPG food. I feel like it's become like a hot spot for people. Very cool. Well, thank you guys. I know we went over a little bit, so thank you for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Love what you guys are building, and love learning a little more about your story.
Thanks, Shane.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, have a good one. See ya.